appalling and enraging that someone who had the opportunity to speak with Karan Bass then took that opportunity to heavily edit an unauthorized recording to reflect what he thought was the most important part of what happened in that meeting.
And I just like, again, I'm continuing to watch the comments as well. I think there are many really important questions being raised, which unfortunately, with the time we have allotted, we won't be able to address. So I would just ask again that people please take time to send their questions to the bass.foreignaffairs@mail.house.gov email address, so we can make sure that Representative Bass has an opportunity to see them as she prepares for her travel.
And there's some questions about the nature of this trip. It is an official congressional delegation. Outside people are not a part of it. I'm not aware of any private citizens being a part of it unless they're staff or members of Congress. They are not included, or security personnel are not included in the trip. So I see some people raising questions about other folks being unduly influenced by being able to travel. It's just not, that's not what's happening here.
Yes, that's correct. That's why we often use the term CODEL, and I apologize, I've spent too much time in DC at this point. CODEL is shorthand for Congressional Delegation. And so by its very nature, it means that private citizens, unfortunately, are not allowed to travel as a part of the trip. This trip is intended for the education of the members. And so that's why we take so much time to ensure that they are able to speak with a wide variety of stakeholders. And I see some of the questions about who she'll be meeting with and how they're selected in the chat. The selection process for meetings, of course, this is a government to government trip. So as a part of that process and as a part of protocol and due respect, meetings are taken with government officials to ensure that Representative Bass and the other delegates have a chance to hear directly from the officials their beliefs on what's happening and the policies that they're implementing. But also as a part of this, as you all have been mentioning, there are things that she can only hear from people in the country who are experiencing what's happening. And so also a great deal of time is put into selecting a wide variety of folks for her to speak with who can give voice to the realities of what are currently happening in Ethiopia.
Right, so I just want to repeat once again, we will take all of the questions that are posed in the question and answer here in the webinar. We will take all of the issues raised in the chat, and we will take all of the emails sent to bass.foreignAffairs@mail.house.gov, an email that is posted several times in the chat. We will take all of that to the Congresswoman, and it will inform her agenda, the questions she asks, the conversations she has, possibly the people she speaks to while she is in Ethiopia. It will be a very fast turnaround trip. Congress is back in session on Monday for a few weeks. They have the weekends off, so whenever she goes, it will be very brief. She's said, I may spend more time in the air than I'm able to spend on the ground, but it is important to her to be able to go and experience firsthand and gather what information she can, what is happening in Ethiopia. Again, for those of you who may have joined a little bit late, my name is Jacqueline Hamilton. I'm District Director for Congresswoman Karan Bass. I've worked for her for not quite 8 years now, and I have the privilege of being her liaison to the Ethiopian American community here in her district in Los Angeles, where I understand we have the third largest concentration of Ethiopians outside of Addis Ababa and Washington, D.C. I'm very familiar with the Ethiopian community. I have many friends there. I am very sorry that we're sort of in this terrible position related to the country. I hear very upset people on many sides. They are reaching out to our office on a very regular basis. They also reach out to the Washington, D.C. office. And Naomi, if you'd reintroduce yourself so that the folks who joined late know who they're talking to.
Yes, I'm Naomi Suggs-Briggity. I've been with the Office of Representative Karan Bass almost 3 years now at this point. I work specifically on the Horn of Africa and North Africa. I have a deep relation to the area. I spent some time in Ethiopia while I was doing my undergraduate studies, and then I also have family who currently reside in Ethiopia. So I would like to I guess just on a personal note, make it understood that I take all of this very seriously. It is not just an academic exercise for me. It is a personal matter, and that is why we work so diligently to make sure that the Congresswoman is as well informed as is possible for anyone to be. I've seen it mentioned a few times, so just like it to be known in this setting that Representative Bass does not only take information from the Ethiopian government, but that she is also speaking with the people of Ethiopia. As you know, she has a long-standing relationship with the country and its people, and she is working to promote what is in the best interest of the people of Ethiopia.
All right. I see a very active conversation going on in the chat, and we really appreciate your engagement. We regret that Congresswoman Bass's schedule did not allow her to join us today, but the main point was to be able to take in information which we can do and share with her, whether or not her ears are present right now. In fact, it might be a little easier once we get all of this information, digest it, share it with her, for her to take it all in. So we appreciate your willingness to take the time, especially on very short notice, to join us, to share your thoughts, to engage in this very important conversation. And although we'll be wrapping up shortly, we hope that you will consider sending in information, questions, comments, positions to bass.foreignAffairs@mail.house.gov. Rep. Bass wears two hats in all of this. On the one hand, she is chair of the Africa Subcommittee on House Foreign Affairs, and so has to have a broad view, an international view as well as a national view. On the other hand, it's also important to remember that she is directly elected by and represents the 37th Congressional District of California here in Los Angeles. And so, although we very much appreciate engagement from Ethiopians across the country, I'm sorry to say that this is the way representation works. If you identify yourself as a constituent by giving us your address and zip code, that kind of elevates what you have to say, because you are directly represented by Karan Bass. And my world, when I started to work for her 8 years ago, suddenly got divided into constituents, those who live in her district, and everybody else. It's not that we don't care about everybody else, but the constituents get a little louder voice with our office in all of the things that, and in all of the things that we do.
Yes, but I will say last, I see we're coming up close to time, but one of the beauties of Representative Bass wearing this dual hat and having such a large constituency is that she gets to have staff such as myself, as important as constituents are for what Jacqueline does as the district director, where I sit on the subcommittee. It is my job and my responsibility to the Congresswoman and to the district to directly engage with all of the diaspora. And so we sit in a very privileged position that many members of Congress don't get. She gets to speak for her constituents with a very strong voice as the chair of the Africa Subcommittee, and then also gets to have direct engagement with the entire diaspora because of her chairmanship of the Africa Subcommittee.
And I do want to let people know who are, again, following along in the chat as much as I can, that the Congresswoman has had many meetings, both with constituents and non-constituents over the last several months, from beginning, from even before the conflict blew up, when it was sort of brewing and there was clear indication that there were problems. She has met with people from all across the country, people from Ethiopia, official and non-official. She's met with constituents on all sides of the issue and continues to be interested in what people have to say. So I just want to be clear that Karan Bass has spent an enormous amount of time listening to what people have to say, listening to their concerns. While I know that for many of you on this webinar, this is your first opportunity to engage with her. This is far from the first time that she's hearing the issues that are being raised. And she is working very hard to take all of the information in, digest it, and make her best decisions. All right, so again, we thank you very much for your time. We're at 5:30. We're going to take all of this information back to the Congresswoman. And for the last time, anything that you didn't get a chance to put here, we hope that you will take the time to email to bass.house excuse me, that's our email, our website, bass.house.gov. You're welcome to visit it. To bass.foreignaffairs@mail.house.gov. bass.foreignaffairs@mail.house.gov. Thank you all very much for taking the time. Thank you for your engagement. Thank you for caring about what's happening in the world. A lot of people are just focused on their own little household during COVID. We know that this is vitally important. We know that there's lives at stake all over. So we appreciate you. We appreciate the time that you've taken. We appreciate any input you send to us. And we thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.